this Monday. And of course, as I mentioned before, it is interview time. Time check 12:02, brought to you by Tire Max. And today I am joined by PFP. PFP's in the building. Melissa Gumbs, MP, party leader.
Yes, sir.
Welcome. Good afternoon. It's 12:02.
Good afternoon, G.
Surprised you're not in Anguilla August Monday?
No, I have not been to August Monday since 2008.
I know. We were trying to
yeah, we were trying to figure all out.
When was the last time I went?
When was the last time you went? Never been?
Nope.
Oh.
Never been. Wow, Miss Clean Slate.
Right?
Rosalinda Martina, how are you, my dear?
I'm good, G. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, G.
So you guys ready to do this again?
14 days.
You know,
14 days.
I'm kind of tired, and I'm not even running. So I can imagine how you guys feel.
Yeah, it's well, I think it's tiring, but at the same time, I feel like it's necessary. I think I feel like at the beginning I asked everybody, and Rosa could tell you, do you want to? Because it's a lot.
Yeah,
2 campaigns in 6 months. It's exhausting, but nevertheless, everyone was down for it. So here we are.
So when it comes to Party for Progress, when it comes to resources and manpower, woman power, how's that going? Because like I said, just 6 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did well enough last campaign. We actually had like certain things left over, that we didn't completely get rid of. So from a materials perspective, we didn't have to order anything new, which is good. And everybody kind of just had to touch base with their teams again. Our own campaign team was already exhausted, so they kind of had to, fall in once more. It's almost like, military style, man. Sometimes you got to do your 2 tours back to back.
That's how you look at it.
So you have to, because I mean, I don't know if nobody expected it, I guess, but in such a short amount of time, I think this is like the fastest. I've heard people tell me that it's not the fastest, and when I say people, I mean the older heads who were around in the Netherlands until these days. I think they said that at one point we had a government that kind of toppled like from one day to the next. Really? But I'm still doing my research to verify that. So yeah.
Okay, so we didn't break the record.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So let's get to some topics. Of course, one topic is always GEBE. How was your weekend, GEBE wise? I mean, I ain't gonna complain. I went off one Saturday, one Sunday.
That's nice for you.
I heard, yeah.
Defiance was at least twice a day. About 3 hours each time.
Really?
Yeah, every day. Sunday as well. Like yesterday, I think I woke up. I said, okay, maybe today it's Sunday.
Today might be a
good day. It was not a good day. I think it went off at 9 a.m. Came back at 12. After 12, and then it went again. I want to say 5 p.m. Came back around 8:15, somewhere there. Yeah.
I was driving around today, and I don't know. Somebody's doing this. They're spray painting. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I saw it. I just kept driving.
I saw it this morning. I was like, I remember
on a few of the houses they've
the
put
GEBE houses, the spray painting. I guess defacing, of course, it's a crime, but they're explaining, I guess, why we're in this.
Yes,
expressing themselves.
Expressing themselves. Put that.
Yeah, that's why you're the teacher.
Not the legal way, but
it's very neatly drawn though.
It is.
Yeah, it looks like
very neatly painted.
Yeah, I think it's like a stencil, and they're spraying it on all the GEBE powerhouses. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just drive around, you'll see it. I'm not gonna. But how did we get here? Why did we get here? How can we fix this?
How we got here is, I think it's not even just about the last 4 years. It's about decisions made, 20, 25 years ago. And how we got here now, I think, does have to kind of look back at the last 4. In 2020, I think the former CEO of GEBE has already said it on his own social media that they had the opportunity to buy engines, and the board basically said no. Why? I guess, I will leave that for those who were there to kind of say. But I have heard repeatedly that there was a financing deal in place to get 2 new engines to make sure that we didn't end up here. Because I think GEBE, especially at the power plant side, probably knew like, okay, there's going to be difficulties coming up. After Irma, you had a lot of big consumers that were offline. And since Irma, you've had some big consumers come back online. We have a JW Marriott now. Weston was down since 2017. Right. So from a consumption perspective, things were maybe looking rosy. But between 14, between everything else that's popped up, And I said, I'm not an engineer, but I would reckon most of them might be requiring 1.5 to 2 megawatts. It's just them, so that already sucks quite a bit from your grid.
True.
And it's hotter, climate change, so everybody's burning their AC longer.
Yes.
Trying to stay cool, and that pulls, even more. So yeah, all of that contributes to how we got here. As to how we fix it, I'm hoping that GEBE has some good news about the container generators this week, and that the plans that they've put in place thereafter, that those can kind of go off without a hitch, because it's a big undertaking, and I have to give all props to the GEBE workers, because synchronizing all those 7 generators with the grid, making sure that when you turn something on, it doesn't vibrate to a point that you blow your whole situation. That's also a very delicate kind of action. So
they've what did I say? Put money down, purchase, or get ready to purchase another generator? Or
yes, I think the goal is to secure financing to buy 2 new generators.
So some people are saying, okay, why are we buying more generators? Why not maybe you can explain better.
Well, I think it's been also said, even if you read like the TNO report and such, because remember that report was for us, Curacao and Aruba.
Correct.
And I believe even in there they said, for all 3 of those islands, our sizing, we might not be able to meet all our energy needs with solar or with wind or whatever. So you have to keep what is there going, while you also see how you can transition over to something different.
Okay.
And I think that's the unfortunate quagmire that we find ourselves in when it comes to GEBE.
Do we have to? I don't know. Do we have to change the board, get a new CEO? What do we have to do?
I think it's yes.
Yes to which one?
Yes to all. Yes to everything. But it's also like I was telling someone earlier today, G, that we have to start getting to a point where we are putting persons in places that they match. It's about competency. It's about boards having profiles. I remember in 2021, we asked questions about the board that the previous government was about to install at GEBE. Not because I didn't personally have issues with anybody who they proposed. In fact, I know most of them and I'm cool with all of them, but because there was someone that matched the technical requirement for the board, and they put forward 5 people that matched the business requirement. And there was nobody financial. There was an expert, no financial expert, no legal mind, no HR expert. And all of those are Corporate Governance Council themselves said, these are competencies that we're going to need, that you need to have on the board. So while they said, well, they don't have any objection, they do advise strongly that government finalize the profiles and finalize these core competencies that you need to have. And then for future boards, you can have a legal, a finance, et cetera, et cetera. And, when we said that, it all of a sudden became that PFP is against young professionals and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, just because you're young, that's not a qualification. I'm sorry. It doesn't mean that you should be in the role that someone is putting you forward for. True. You have to make sure that people match. I'm a young professional, but I know that I know nothing technical about GEBE. Which is why the board requires a technical person, you know? So you have to also be willing to look at yourself and say, do I belong on this board? I think.
Am I here just to get the check?
Yeah. So all of those are questions I think we have to start asking and answering for ourselves. And honestly, it just is a focus on making sure people match the competency that they need to show in a position.
Right, because you have people who just don't even have the education background for being that, to be there,
Yeah.
Speaking of education, what are we doing when it comes PFP? What is PFP doing looking in the future when it comes to our future, as in our kids and education and school systems? What are we trying to do? What are we doing?
We're looking to incorporate STEAM within our education curriculum. STEAM being science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And the first step would be to look at the curriculum we have now.
Right.
I know we get a lot of complaints, but no one is sitting down to check what are the bottlenecks and how do we incorporate STEAM to make learning more exciting for our students, because they are bored a lot of the times, and by incorporating STEAM, they're more hands-on. They get to experience real life scenarios and solve problems for themselves, become more critical thinkers. And if we sit down and decide hey, these are the bottlenecks, this is how we're going to incorporate STEAM within our curriculum so that our students can be lifelong learners. They can enjoy learning.
Yeah.
That is what's lacking right now.
True.
So,
Do we need to build more schools? Is that an issue?
right now, I think we need the manpower first.
Yeah.
We need the manpower because teachers are leaving the profession. We already don't have enough and they're leaving. So we need incentives to keep them there and also encourage others to want to become educators. So that got to be first.
I just saw something, a press release with allowance or something the teachers just got, or one?
They're supposed to be getting a vacation allowance.
Oh, okay.
Subsidized schools, yeah.
For subsidized schools.
For subsidized schools. So that was something that nobody was getting, or?
Government already received it. So government teachers
The public
already
schools,
received, yes. But subsidized teachers
did not get it.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand. All right. Let's go into this another mess. We have so many messes in St. Martin. Jeez, I don't know which mess to touch first. ENNIA. Let's talk about ENNIA. This bailout, or however you want to call it.
Yeah.
Let's
Well, waiting for the parliament meeting to be recalled. Yeah, we had the first version of it with the Minister of Finance, Minister Gumbs, where she expressed, that she would like to look for an alternate solution or such. And I think, I think maybe the time for that is not really possible anymore. I think that we run a risk because there are tight deadlines for implementation, etc., for the solution that's already on the table. And it is an uncomfortable solution. Nobody likes it. But at the same time, I'm also, trying to think of the 3,000 policyholders on the island and their families. They run the risk of not getting their pension payout if ENNIA goes bankrupt, which is a certainty if we don't, solve the issue now. Tying us to that type of agreement for the amount of time, it doesn't feel good. But I also think that that's another situation where it's good for people to look back and think, well, how did we get here? You have a former Minister of Finance who's now asking people for their vote. Who was a supervisory director for ENNIA group, and had a bird's eye view, a helicopter view, as they like to say in corporate speak, of what all was happening and decisions that were being taken, whether it was about the insurance, whether it was about dividends, whether it was about Mullet Bay, etc. So you have that there now, and no one has really said, well, my guy, you were there. Like, what did you do to prevent us from getting here? And, there's also the ongoing legal discussion and legal situation. It could all be solved if everybody who was involved just paid back. But, just
in a perfect world.
In a perfect world. But that requires a strength of character that I don't know if anybody would really have it. And I think the risk of us with the COVID loans, because right now this agreement is tied to the lower percentage on the refinancing of the COVID loans. So right now we're at 3.3% or 3.5%. We run the risk of it going to as high as 8%, if we don't move forward with this agreement. Curacao has already taken their steps. They've already agreed. For me, for us as a faction, it's, we don't like it, but we understand the further financial risk if our interest rate had to balloon up to what it could. So I'm hoping that meeting gets called soon, preferably before elections, so that we can at least take that step and say, let's continue to move forward with solving this issue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Elections coming up, and we've seen precautionary measures when it comes to vote buying and other things, as in military and stuff. To say we saw some stuff this last night in Dutch Quarter.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know what exactly the reason behind what happened in Dutch Quarter, but what I can say is I cannot condone any kind of violence toward our hardworking police officers. And we have guest Marines, basically, that left their families to come here and do their jobs, literally, and they're being attacked. So I cannot condone that kind of violence, attacking against our hard workers.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's unfortunate. And I don't know, again, I don't know. I saw the videos. I don't know why. I don't know where it stemmed from, etc. I do know that I find there are persons who should be more responsible with their words. And yes, I'm talking about some of my colleagues kind of, pushing this whole thing of, but why does it have to be this way? And it's a confusing message that you're sending to the community, right? On the one hand, you're super concerned because you receive threats. like that meeting that we had about the crime situation went completely off the rails, you know. And I think MP Bruch said something very good in his motivation on a vote for the motion, where he said, you know, this meeting started off about public safety, and now we're all just focused on our own. But it doesn't matter, you know. The public has to come first, and I think that when you're confusing them, or you're purposefully politicizing things that do not need to be politicized, you're instigating this type of behavior. So I do hope that you know, we do get a reason as to why this happened. I also, as a party, we cannot condone violence towards our policemen and women. I can only imagine, you know, how that must feel. You know, so definitely that that they take whatever measures need to be taken within, you know, their authority and their reason. But yeah, it's a strange time, right? Because not only did you have what happened last night, but then you also have what I would say is the main person that kind of kicked off all of this, you know, there will come a reckoning kind of talk. Also now trying to kind of capitalize on what happened. And for me, if I was a detective or a cop, I would look at that as, did you have a hand in planning this? Did you have a hand in pushing this and instigating this? And I think that, you know, that is the direction I think the KPSM should be going. I'm not a detective, but I think that, you know, for us, that is very concerning, because you're aligning yourself now to these acts. And I mean, you know how the US treats these types of things. That would have been
one time
a post like that would have gotten you a knock on the door. Like, we have some questions, you know. So I do hope that that is also being looked into, because persons that are hyping up things like this are usually the ones that are benefiting from it, and they're usually the ones that are organizing it.
Wow, this is crazy. When it comes to the rallies, what's going on now? Yes, no, maybe so.
Well, I mean, they've been happening. We don't do rallies. We don't do that. We just kind of stick to, you know, our little community get-togethers and such.
You still doing a town hall meeting?
Not town halls per se.
Okay.
We just had a get together in Simpson Bay, right there at the court, played some ball, and then, you know, just talk to persons as they arrive, just as a little family fun day thing. And that's what we've been sticking to. But the rallies have been happening. I understood the reason why, you know, the reason behind it. I get that, you know, as I said in Parliament, persons maybe have paid vendors, you've paid performers, etc. So you don't want to lose out on that investment, sound, lights, you know, trucks, etc. So I understand, but I also understand why the prohibition was even, you know, decided on in COM.
Correct.
And even, especially for election day, that's something that I definitely support, to not have persons around the polling stations, you know, on the day of the election. And I know people keep saying that that's part of our culture and such, but, you know, culture is a thing that is always shifting.
Right.
It's not static.
Correct.
It changes.
Right.
And that is also something that can shift. And if I think about, you know, when we talk about unification of the two sides, French side and Dutch side, on the French side, you're not allowed to do that. So I always ask the question, like, whose way is going to win in a unification discussion, you know? So I think considering what happened in January, because that is where my whole hesitance came from, having people, like, all my candidates reported strange things happening at their polling stations that they were at, you know?
People want to have a peace of mind when they're going to vote.
Exactly.
People turned away. There was a lot of noise.
And you were by Butte Hotel, right?
Yeah. There was a lot of noise. People are talking to you to, hey, come vote here. People being pulled to the side. It was chaos. And you have people getting frustrated and leaving. I saw many people just leave.
Yeah, I drove by a couple of polling stations. I was like, it was like a carnival.
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah, and then you had the fight in Belvedere. And I think, you know, you couple all of that together, especially now with the current climate and the current tensions and such in the community, I think it just is a recipe for disaster. So I do hope that when the guidelines are finally published by the Minister of Justice, that they will maintain that particular move to not allow gathering at polling stations.
Yeah, it was a bit out of it. I know it's our culture, but sometimes I think that word is just an excuse a lot of times.
Yeah.
Not just when it comes to this, but like a lot of other things that we do. Oh, it's our culture.
Yeah.
In closing, PFP, I know you guys have a new member on your list. And two. Is anything different you guys doing different this time? Anything you guys want to tell the people of St. Martin, or is it the same, you know, the gold standard is, you know, what's
No, it's definitely remains the gold standard. I think that what people should take away from what's happened is for 4 years we were getting knocks on the door as well to throw down the previous government. That's the reality of it. We've said that publicly.
You said that here on the
We've
show.
said it here. We've said it on this show. On every other show we've been on, we've said it in the street. And I think that that is something that also has to be looked at. We always crucify the ship jumper, and by all means, yes, because they've made a decision that throws the country into some turmoil. But at the same time, in the Netherlands until these days, like I can't say it in Pavimento, but they used to basically say that if you break government, you got to be ready to form government. And it's a serious decision that you're taking, And we held the door shut for 4 years, gave them their stability. And if stability is the most important thing, then it shouldn't matter who's in the seat. There's nothing that could have happened in 17 days to tell you that, oh yeah, this government got to go.
Yeah.
But there were many things that happened over 4 years that told many people that government had to go. And I think the message that they got at the polls in January, National Alliance lost over 1,000 votes. You understand? So I think those are the things, the self-reflection is lacking. And I think as we, continue to talk about mental health and improving yourself and improving the self-reflection is also important when it comes to that. So we will focus on integrity, on accountability. I think we proved over the 4 years in Parliament that we were about that. We tried to cut our salaries before we were ordered to do so by the Netherlands because we saw the situation the private sector was going to end up in for COVID, and everybody shot us down. Everyone asking for your vote, asking you to trust them now, they said no to that. They fought that tooth and nail. So I think those are the character faults people have to start looking at when casting their vote on August 19th.
Okay. Any last words, Martina?
If you want change, go out and vote for change. Vote for a party that is going to communicate, that are going to be transparent, and they're going to hold who needs to be held accountable. So,
all right, the gold standard, PFP. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
24 here on the station with the attitude. Coming up, we got the joke of the day, not PFP joke of the day. We got the joke